Welcome back to the deep dive. We're looking at a fascinating stack of sources you sent over technical reports, status pages, legal filings, all focused on one company's final chaotic week of 2025.
We are talking, of course, about Anthropic AI.
Okay, let's just jump right in and unpack this. This whole week wasn't really about a flashy new model launch. It felt like a strategic shift.
A very strategic shift. It was a leap from just having powerful models to deploying them as integrated acting systems.
Right. And that's the theme that kept coming up, this push for agency, for AI that does things happening at the exact same time their stability and legal ground were shaking pretty badly.
I think you could say this week confirmed their pivot into being a true agentic AI foundation. I mean, you see them embedding Claude into critical national infrastructure.
While also scrambling to release open source tools to, manage the very risks that agency creates. It's a paradox.
It is.
So our mission here is to pull out the core story of how a frontier AI leader juggles this. Large-scale deployment, serious operational wobbles, and these huge legal threats that could change everything.
This is where the theory hits the road. Hard.
Let's start with research and safety, because that's where everything begins. The biggest headache for every major lab right now is speed. How do you possibly keep safety audits up to date?
You can't. Not with the old methods. Anthropic knows that traditional static benchmarks, these fixed tests you run, they get exhausted.
The models either learn the test and cheat, or they just evolve so quickly the test becomes irrelevant.
Exactly. So their answer, which they released globally around December 21st, is a new tool called Bloom.
And Bloom is open source, but it's not just another testing tool. The headline called it an agentic evaluation framework. So are we using AI agents to test other AI agents?
That's the fascinating part, yes. Bloom basically automates the whole safety testing process by using its own little four-stage agent pipeline to invent new tests on the fly.
So it's not a fixed test sheet. It's more like a creative adversarial AI trying to poke holes in the model you're testing.
Precisely.
So what are those 4 stages? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. First is understanding, where the agent just figures out the safety goal. Then ideation, where it brainstorms tricky new ways to test for that goal.
Okay.
Third was rollout. It runs the test. And then finally, judgment, where a separate judge model looks at the response and decides if it was safe or not.
So if you're looking for something subtle, like sycophancy, the model just telling you what you want to hear, Bloom is designed to keep creating new scenarios to tease that behavior out.
That's the core idea. It's their solution to the scalability problem in AI safety. It lets their researchers keep pace with these frontier models by probing for really tough-to-spot behaviors, like self-preservation or even sabotage.
But hold on, if another AI is the judge, how do we trust it? Isn't that a bit like letting a student grade their own homework?
That's the million-dollar question, and they knew they had to address it. They put a lot of work into making sure those judge models were reliable. The technical report mentioned a Spearman correlation of up to 0.86 with human labels.
Which, in plain English, means the AI judge agrees with the human judge about 86% of the time.
And that's a very high level of agreement. It means the process is efficient, but also trustworthy enough to be used at scale. This really signals that the future of AI governance is, well, it's more AI.
Okay, so let's move from research to the real world. Anthropic ended the year with a focus on 2 things: rewarding their customers and tightening control for their enterprise clients.
A classic carrot and stick approach. The carrot was a holiday promotion they announced on December 24th.
Right, the holiday 2025 usage promotion, which doubled the limits for all their Claude subscribers.
It was a smart, simple move. You reward your best customers, and you encourage them to really push the limits of the Opus 4.5 model during a week when they have more free time. It builds loyalty.
But the more significant updates, I think, were on the enterprise side. The Claude Code v2.0.70 release. This is the big tool for developers. What changed?
It was all about performance and control, hitting the biggest pain points for businesses. The headline number was a 3x improvement in memory usage for big conversations.
Now that sounds kind of dry and technical. Why is a 3x memory improvement such a big deal for a developer?
Well, think about it. If you have an AI agent helping you on a huge, complex code base, it needs to hold the entire history of your conversation, all the code, all the decisions, in its working memory.
Okay.
If that memory is inefficient, the session crashes, or the agent just forgets what you were doing. You have to start over. It's incredibly frustrating and costly.
So that 3x improvement means an agent can actually be a stable partner for hours on a really complex project. It remembers things.
Exactly. It makes the agent reliable. But the second big feature was all about control. which ties right back to that theme of managing agency.
The new plan model required parameter.
This is a huge deal for enterprise adoption. As these agents get more autonomous, businesses need an emergency brake. This parameter forces a human to approve the agent's plan before it can actually start implementing any code.
So an agent can't just go rogue and start pushing code to a company's main repository without a human manager signing off on the strategy first.
Right. It's the human-in-the-loop feature that big companies have been asking for. It lets them get the speed of AI agency without the risk of an unsupervised mistake spiraling out of control. It's foundational.
Okay, now we have to get to the part of the week where the friction really started to show. Stability and some massive legal problems.
Yeah, this is where it got rocky. Just as they're pitching this vision of agentic AI, their own infrastructure started to wobble.
The headline from their status page was pretty blunt. Opus 4.5 experienced elevated error rates across 3 consecutive days.
December 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. 3 separate incidents, 3 days in a row. It affected everything: the API, the main platform, and Claude code.
That's not just a random glitch, that's a pattern.
It is. The outages weren't super long, maybe 35 minutes to a little over 2 hours each. But the clustering, the fact that it happened on 3 straight days during a peak period, that raises serious questions for users who depend on this for their own product.
It makes the platform feel unstable.
It does. And right at the same time, we saw another sign of strain, this time from their cloud partner.
The Microsoft Foundry issue. Claude Opus 4.5 deployment hit a quota constraint. So what was happening there?
Developers trying to spin up the new Opus 4.5 preview model, especially in the Big East U.S. region, were just getting hit with insufficient quota errors. They were blocked.
So what does that tell us?
2 things at once. 1, Anthropic put some very strict limits or gates on who could access this new model. They were being cautious.
And 2.
And 2, the demand from enterprise customers through Microsoft was just off the charts. It was so high that it immediately hit those strict limits, forcing people to try deploying in other regions, like Sweden, or wait up to 2 days for manual approval.
So it's a perfect storm. The demand is huge, but the infrastructure is creaking and the service itself is having stability issues.
It absolutely underscores that the race to have the best model is one thing. The race to have the infrastructure to actually run it reliably at scale is a completely different and maybe harder challenge.
And if that wasn't enough, this is the week their legal troubles got a lot worse.
A lot worse. A new, massive lawsuit. The headline: Authors file new copyright lawsuit naming Anthropic among 6 AI defendants.
This was filed in California around December 22nd. What makes this one so different? We've heard about author lawsuits before.
This is different because the plaintiffs, who include the investigative reporter John Carreyrou, explicitly opted out of and rejected the previous big class action settlement.
Okay, and their core claim is that Anthropic and 5 other AI companies trained their models on books they got from pirated shadow libraries.
Yes, places like LibGen and Z Library, which are notorious for distributing copyrighted material illegally.
Let's talk about the money, because that seems to be the real story here. Why turn down the big settlement?
Because they felt it was a joke. The previous settlement pool was estimated to pay out only around $3,000 per author. These new plaintiffs call that totally inadequate.
So what are they asking for instead?
They are going for the maximum statutory damages allowed by law, $150,000 per infringed work per defendant.
Whoa, per defendant. So with 6 companies named, that could be up to $900,000 in damages for a single book.
Exactly. This move completely changes the potential liability. It's not just about compensating a few authors anymore. This is an attempt to set a new, incredibly expensive legal precedent for using copyrighted training data.
It could make the cost of training future models astronomically high. It's an existential risk to their whole business model.
If a court agrees with them, yes, it's an existential threat.
So even with all that chaos, the outages, the quota limits, this huge lawsuit Anthropic somehow pulled off maybe its biggest strategic win of the entire year.
It's an incredible contrast. On December 22nd, they announced that Anthropic and the U.S. Department of Energy are partnering for the Genesis mission.
And this sounds huge. A multi-year partnership to integrate Claude AI across all 17 of the nation's national laboratories.
It's a landmark deal. This is a profound move toward what some people call sovereign AI.
Can you explain that? What is sovereign AI?
It's the idea that a nation needs to maintain control over its own critical AI systems, embedding them directly into government infrastructure rather than just buying a service from a commercial cloud.
So Anthropic is becoming part of the U.S. national security and science infrastructure.
That's the goal. Their engineers will be working side by side with DOE researchers to deploy purpose-built agents to tackle some of the country's hardest problems.
Like what, specifically?
Really high-stakes stuff. The announcement mentioned accelerating nuclear technology research, building better pandemic early warning systems, and even speeding up the incredibly slow government process for energy permitting reviews.
So they're trying to use AI to unblock major national priorities.
Precisely. And the documents also mentioned integrating Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, or MCP servers. That's the underlying language that lets agents talk to tools and data.
So they're not just providing the brain, they're providing the entire nervous system for how the DOE will use agents in the future.
Yes. It's a very deep strategic anchoring that will be very, very hard for a competitor to undo.
Okay, let's try to connect all these dots. The big picture from this week is just, it's a story of two extremes.
It really is. On one side, you have this incredible validation, the Genesis Mission, using agentic AI to tackle nuclear science and pandemics.
And on the other side, you have just intense risk, infrastructure that's failing for 3 days straight, and a legal challenge that could literally bankrupt the training process for future models.
So what does this all mean for you? I think the key takeaway is that the race for agency is moving much faster than the race for stability and legal clarity.
Anthropic is trying to patch those holes, right? Automating safety with Bloom, getting these big government partners.
They're trying. But the operational stumbles and that new lawsuit are powerful reminders that the foundations are still really shaky.
So the big question for 2026 isn't if AI can be autonomous. We know it can.
Right. The question is how reliably it can do it at scale and, maybe more importantly, under what legal rules. Because right now, nobody seems to know.
And that leads to our final thought. We've seen that these autonomous agents can audit safety, they can write code, they can help manage national science projects. That's all incredible.
Right.
But if just 6 authors are now seeking what could amount to over $5.4 million in damages from these AI companies for just a handful of books, what is the real hidden cost of all the data that was used to train these world-changing agents? Something to think about until our next deep dive.